What if the person you trust the most is wearing a mask, and behind it there's nothing but darkness? That thought might shake you, but sometimes the ones who smile the widest are the ones hiding the sharpest fangs. You feel it, don't you? That strange energy, that quiet tension, like something's off but you can't quite name it. You doubt yourself, you second guess, but deep down your soul knows something isn't right. You're not crazy, you're not imagining it. Some people don't come to love you, they come to drain you. And the worst part is, they don't look like villains, they look like friends, lovers, family. That's how they get in. They don't kick the door down, they knock sweetly, speak softly, and make you feel seen. At first they give you everything: attention, affection, validation. They mirror your dreams, they echo your values. They say all the right things, and you begin to believe, maybe this person is the one who finally understands. But that's just the trap, because this isn't connection, it's control in disguise. It's a strategy, a mask, and it always slips. Slowly the words change, the tone hardens, the affection turns into expectation. Your joy becomes their threat, your boundaries become their targets, and the person you thought was a blessing begins to feel like a burden you can't shake. There's a reason it feels like you're losing yourself, because you are. These people don't just want a place in your life, they want to take it over. They chip away at your confidence. They twist your reality. They use guilt as a leash and kindness as a currency. You start walking on eggshells. You start doubting your worth. You become smaller, quieter, more afraid. And the mask they once wore, it's gone. But by then, you're already in too deep, or so it feels. But listen closely, because this truth could change your life. You are allowed to question the people around you. You are allowed to see the signs and walk away. You are allowed to protect your peace, even if it means standing alone for a while. The world teaches us to forgive, to be kind, to see the good in everyone. But here's what the world forgets to teach: not everyone has good in them. Not everyone means well, and not everyone deserves a seat at your table. This is your wake-up call, because by the end of this, you'll no longer ignore the signs. You'll know exactly what to look for. You'll understand why that pit in your stomach isn't just anxiety, it's intuition. You'll feel empowered, not afraid. You'll realize that recognizing darkness in others isn't judgment, it's self-respect. And most of all, you'll learn how to reclaim your power from anyone who ever tried to steal it. Stay with me. What you discover next could be the beginning of your freedom, and once you see the truth, you'll never unsee it again. Some people don't need to touch you to hurt you, they just drain your soul by being near. You've felt it before. After spending time with them, you're exhausted, empty, confused. Not because you gave too much love, but because they took too much energy. These are the ones who never seem satisfied. You pour your time, your care, your heart into them, but it's never enough. They always need more. More attention, more sacrifice. More of you, and every time you give, they take. But they never give it back, because they don't see you as a person. They see you as a source, and the moment you stop feeding them, they start punishing you. They create tension out of nothing, conflict without cause. You find yourself caught in their storms, always trying to fix, to explain, to calm. But peace isn't what they want. It never was. They thrive on your emotional response, on your stress, your guilt, your overthinking, because every time you react, they feel powerful. Every time you chase their approval, they feel important. They're not just draining your energy, they're feeding on your attention, on your need to be enough. That's how they survive, by keeping you in survival mode. But here's the truth they hope you never realize. You don't owe your energy to anyone who only shows up to take. Your presence is valuable, your peace is sacred, and anyone who leaves you feeling heavy, small, or anxious has no place in your inner world. You were not put on this earth to be someone's emotional battery. You were meant to rise, to create, to shine. But you can't do that if someone else is always plugging into your spirit and draining your light. You might have been taught that giving endlessly is noble, that self-sacrifice is love, but real love doesn't leave you tired. Real love fills you, lifts you, heals you. If being around someone constantly empties you, that's not love, that's control, that's manipulation. And no matter how much they pretend to care, the truth is in how you feel when they walk away. Are you relieved? Are you lighter? Then your body already knows what your heart is still trying to deny. It's time to take your energy back, not by yelling, not by proving anything, but by quietly choosing peace over chaos, by walking away from the games, by no longer trying to fix what was never your responsibility. The people who are meant for you will never need you to bleed just to prove your worth. They will never compete with your light, they will protect it. You don't need to keep giving pieces of yourself to those who would never offer even a fraction in return. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to disconnect. You are allowed to heal. And most of all, you are allowed to rise without the weight of those who only ever came to feed on your fall. They don't get to control you just because they understand you. That's the illusion. They study you. They learn your patterns. They figure out what makes you feel seen, then reflect it back like a mirror. Not to love you, but to own you. They become everything you ever dreamed of, only to turn it into a nightmare you never saw coming. Their compliments are precise. Their empathy is calculated. They say just enough of the right things to disarm you, then slowly replace your intuition with their influence. You begin to trust their version of you more than your own. You begin to forget who you were before they arrived. This is how false bonds are built, on manipulation disguised as connection. It feels like fate, but it's a setup. What they want is not your love, but your loyalty, not your heart, but your submission. And they get it by pretending to be the answer to everything you've ever lacked. They don't enter your life by force. They enter by becoming what you think you need. That's the hook, that's the spell. But the truth is, anyone who needs to become a mirror to stay close to you is already hiding who they really are. Connection doesn't demand a performance. It doesn't imitate. It doesn't study your soul just to mimic it. It shows up with honesty, even if it's imperfect. But people like this don't want honesty. They want influence. And they gain it by creating the illusion of being your missing piece. They want you to feel seen by them so you'll stop seeing clearly. They want to be the voice you trust more than your own. And once they have that, they can shape your choices, rewrite your boundaries, and steer your life without ever raising their voice. This is not love. This is not care. This is control wrapped in intimacy. And the longer you stay under it, the more you disappear. That's why you feel lost. That's why your joy feels forced. Because somewhere deep inside, you know what's happening. You know this isn't real. You know they're not who they claim to be. And yet, you hold on. Because they made you believe you couldn't breathe without them. But you can. You always could. You don't need someone to copy your soul in order to feel whole. You don't need to be understood to be worthy. What you need is the courage to see through the mirror and recognize that your reflection is being used against you. You were never meant to become someone else's version of yourself. You were meant to live free, to love true, to rise unchained. Let this be the moment you choose clarity over comfort. Let this be the moment you say no to imitation and yes to authenticity. You don't have to shrink yourself to keep someone close. The right people will never need to impersonate your light just to stand in it. They will use love like a weapon and make you believe it's your fault for bleeding. At first, it feels pure. It feels real. They flood you with affection, praise, attention, so much, so fast, you barely have time to breathe. You think you've finally found someone who sees you, values you, cherishes you. But love, when forced like a tidal wave, is rarely genuine. It's a setup, an illusion, and when the tide pulls back, you're left stranded, desperate to feel that rush again. That's when the real game begins. They make you believe you owe them for the love they gave, that every moment of attention came with a price, that your worth is measured by how much you're willing to sacrifice to keep their affection alive. Suddenly you're not being loved, you're being tested, conditioned, controlled. The love you once felt safe in now feels like a tightrope you're walking barefoot, hoping not to fall. You begin to question yourself, you try harder, you give more, but it's never enough, because it was never meant to be. Their love is not a gift, it's bait. This is how manipulation wears the face of care. They give just enough to keep you chasing. They withhold just enough to keep you starving. And when you finally speak up, when you finally say something feels off, they flip the script, they cry, they blame, they guilt. Suddenly, you're the problem. You're too sensitive, you're too ungrateful, you're impossible to please. And just like that, they use your compassion against you. They twist your empathy into a leash. They pull on your kindness until you mistake suffering for strength and pain for love. But real love doesn't punish. It doesn't make you beg for crumbs. It doesn't turn your heart into a battlefield just to prove you care. Love is not a transaction. Love is not a trap. Love should never feel like drowning in the very place you were promised safety. You're not here to be broken down just to be rebuilt in someone else's image. You're not here to earn affection by sacrificing yourself. You're not here to prove your worth to someone who only loves you when it's easy for them. You are here to be seen in your truth, held in your strength, valued without condition. And if that makes you too much for someone who only knows how to love with chains, let them go. Let them keep their weaponized love. Because you were never meant to be wounded by what's supposed to heal you. You were meant to rise, whole, untamed, unapologetic. There is nothing selfish about wanting love that feels safe. There is nothing wrong with demanding peace. You don't have to explain why chaos no longer excites you. You don't have to apologize for walking away from anyone who turns love into control. You are not difficult. You are finally awake. And that's what they fear the most. They'll rewrite your reality while looking you straight in the eyes, daring you to question what you know is true. That's the cruelty of gaslighting. It doesn't just confuse your mind, it attacks your soul. You start out confident. You speak your truth. You share your feelings, hoping to be heard. But instead of being met with care, you're met with denial, dismissal, twists. Suddenly, the facts are foggy. The timeline is blurred. You begin to wonder if you misremembered, misunderstood, overreacted. That's exactly how they want you to feel, unsure, unstable, dependent. When someone constantly denies what happened, even when the evidence is clear, they're not trying to clear the air. They're trying to cloud your judgment. They want you to doubt your senses, your memory, your gut, because the more confused you are, the more control they have. If they can make you question yourself, they never have to take responsibility. It's not just manipulation, it's erasure. Bit by bit, they chip away at your reality until you start seeing yourself through their lens. A broken version of the truth where they're always right and you're always wrong. You find yourself apologizing when you've done nothing wrong. You find yourself defending your reactions more than your feelings. You find yourself walking away from your own instincts just to keep the peace. That's not love. That's emotional warfare. And it leaves scars that no one can see, but you feel them. Every day. In the silence after the arguments. In the moments where you question your sanity. In the long nights where you replay everything, hoping to find proof that you're not losing your mind. But you're not. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're not too sensitive. You're waking up. You're starting to remember who you were before they planted doubt in your head. And that's the beginning of your power coming back. Because the truth is, your voice matters. Your perception matters. Your memory matters. Just because someone refuses to admit what they did doesn't mean it didn't happen. And just because they pretend to be confused doesn't mean you are. You don't need their validation to believe in your truth. You don't need to win the argument to reclaim your clarity. You need only to stand still and listen to the part of you that never stopped knowing. The part they couldn't reach. The part they tried to silence but never could. The part of you is still there, waiting, watching, ready to rise. You're not here to be manipulated into silence. You're here to trust yourself again. To believe your own eyes. To feel your own feelings without shame. The moment you stop explaining your truth to someone who's invested in denying it, you begin the journey back to yourself. You deserve peace that doesn't come at the cost of your sanity. You deserve connection that doesn't require you to abandon your reality. And most of all, you deserve to feel safe inside your own mind again. They see your light, and it terrifies them. Not because it blinds them, but because it reveals everything they are not. The moment you begin to rise, they begin to tremble. Your joy threatens their control. Your confidence disturbs their power. They don't want you whole, they want you quiet, smaller, doubting yourself. Because when you shine, you stop needing them. And when you stop needing them, their game ends. So they attack the very things that make you strong, your voice, your dreams, your growth. They don't always come at you with insults. Sometimes it's subtle, a backhanded compliment, a quiet dismissal, a raised eyebrow when you speak with pride. They question your decisions, mock your excitement, plant little doubts in the soil of your mind until you no longer trust what makes you glow. That's how they chip away at you, one sarcastic comment, one eye roll, one fake concern at a time. And before you know it, you begin shrinking yourself to keep them comfortable. But why should your light make anyone uncomfortable? Why should your happiness feel like a crime? The answer is simple. Because they're not rooting for your rise, they're threatened by it. They see your strength as rebellion, your independence as danger, your success as disloyalty. But the truth is, you were never made to dim just so someone else could feel bright. Your existence is not a threat. It's a reminder that power doesn't come from control. It comes from truth. You don't need to apologize for your growth. You don't need to defend your healing. You don't need to slow down so they can catch up. If someone truly values you, they will celebrate your light, not compete with it. They will protect your energy, not poison it. They will rise with you, not rise by standing on you. And if they can't do that, it says everything about them, and nothing about you. You were not born to be tolerated. You were born to be unleashed. The world doesn't need another watered-down version of you. It needs your fire, your edge, your full, unapologetic truth. Stop letting small minds talk you out of big visions. Stop seeking approval from those who fear the very power that makes you alive. You don't need their permission to be who you already are. You just need your own. If your light exposes their shadows, let it. If your truth makes them squirm, let it. You're not responsible for their discomfort. You're responsible for your freedom. And freedom means no longer shrinking just to fit inside someone else's fragile sense of control. This is your time to stop hiding. This is your moment to rise. Let them feel whatever they feel. Let them say whatever they say. Your light isn't up for negotiation, and from this moment on, it never will be again. They don't isolate you all at once. They do it slowly, quietly, carefully. At first it looks like concern. They say they just want what's best for you. They question the people you trust. They plant seeds of doubt about your friends, your family, your support system. Not because those people are dangerous, but because they are. And they know they can't control you while you still have a circle that reminds you of your worth. So, one by one, they begin pulling you away. They create tension where there was none. They point out flaws in others while hiding their own. They twist your loyalty until it feels like betrayal to speak to someone else. They make you feel guilty for spending time away from them, even if it's just a few hours. They label others as jealous, toxic, manipulative, projecting the very traits they refuse to own. And slowly, your world gets smaller, your phone goes quiet, the invites stop. The people who once loved you begin to fade, not because they gave up, but because you were pushed away. You didn't lose those people. You were conditioned to let them go. And that's what emotional isolation does. It doesn't lock the door, it convinces you to walk out of it. You start believing you're better off alone with the one person who's actually tearing you apart, because by now you've been made to feel like no one else understands you. Like no one else gets it. Like everyone else is against you. It's not an accident. It's a strategy. And it works, not because you're weak, but because you're human. Because you wanted love. Because you trusted someone who disguised poison as protection. But here's the truth they tried to bury. The people who truly care about you will never isolate you from your tribe. They will never make you choose between love and freedom, between connection and control. They will encourage your relationships. They will strengthen your community. They will celebrate the bonds that keep you grounded. Real love builds bridges. It never burns them down. If you're feeling alone, it's not because you're unlovable. It's because you've been separated from the very people who remind you of your light. And you can return to that light. You can reach back out. You can rebuild what was broken. Not everything lost is gone forever. You just have to see the truth for what it is. No one who truly loves you will ever try to cut you off from love itself. You deserve connection that uplifts you, not cages you. You deserve friendships that speak life into your spirit, not silence your voice. You deserve to be surrounded by those who want to see you whole, not dependent. Let this be your reminder, you're not alone. You were never meant to be, and it's not too late to reclaim the connections that your soul still remembers. They never take responsibility, and somehow, it always ends up being your fault. No matter what happens, they twist the narrative until you're the one apologizing, explaining, justifying your every word. You could bleed for them, break for them, bend until you lose yourself. And still, they'd say you didn't do enough. That's the trap. That's the poison. They turn every mistake into your burden, every conflict into your flaw. They never reflect. They deflect. And over time, you begin to internalize it. You begin to carry shame that was never yours to hold. It starts to feel normal. You make excuses for them. You tell yourself they're just stressed, just tired, just misunderstood. You minimize your pain to protect their image. You bury your feelings so theirs can stay comfortable. But deep inside, something feels wrong. Because it is. You're not supposed to absorb every blame they throw at you. You're not supposed to be the scapegoat for someone who refuses to grow. That's not love. That's manipulation masked as accountability. That's control dressed in concern. You begin to doubt yourself. You question if maybe you're too emotional, too reactive, too difficult. But stop. Breathe. Ask yourself, why are you always the one expected to change? Why are you the only one carrying the weight of two people's emotions? That is not balance. That is not partnership. That is self-erasure. And the longer you play their game, the more you lose sight of your truth. You were not created to be someone else's emotional punching bag. You are not here to constantly apologize for existing, for feeling, for being human. Responsibility is shared, and if someone refuses to own their part, they are not safe to build with. No matter how much you love them, no matter how much potential you see, you cannot carry a relationship alone. You cannot fix someone who refuses to look at their own reflection. There is power in saying no more, power in standing up and declaring that you will no longer be blamed for things you did not break, that you will no longer shrink yourself just to keep someone else from facing their own truth. You are not the villain in their story just because you finally refuse to be their victim. You are not selfish for choosing peace over chaos. You are not cold for walking away from the endless cycle of blame. You deserve to be with someone who owns their mistakes, not hides them behind you. Someone who sees conflict as an opportunity for growth, not a chance to control. Someone who takes accountability without needing to tear you down in the process. That's real maturity, that's real love. And if you've never experienced that, let this be the moment you decide you will. You are allowed to rewrite the narrative. You are allowed to stop apologizing for being who you are. And most of all, you are allowed to stop carrying blame that was never yours to begin with. They will twist the past to protect the lie. Not just to fool you, but to reshape what you remember, until your own truth becomes a question mark. That's the silent weapon of manipulation. They don't just deny what happened, they rewrite it. Slowly, strategically. They recall events with just enough truth to sound believable, but with just enough distortion to serve their agenda. And because you once trusted them, you start to trust their version of the past more than your own. That's when they win, not by force, but by planting doubt so deep you start to lose track of reality. You remember the pain. You remember the silence, the tears, the tension, but they'll tell you it didn't happen that way. They'll smile and say you're overreacting. They'll insist you're remembering wrong. They'll spin the story until you begin questioning your own mind. And when your memory finally starts to collapse under the pressure, they step in and offer their version like it's truth. Not to help you heal, but to keep you controlled. Because when someone controls the past, they control your identity. They decide who is right, who is wrong, who needs to apologize, and who deserves to be punished. And if you've spent long enough inside that kind of relationship, you know exactly how that feels. You feel guilty for things you didn't do. You feel shame for emotions you were justified to feel. You start apologizing for having a voice. And every time you try to speak the truth, they talk louder, sharper, colder, until you go silent. But here's the truth they can't erase. What you lived was real. What you felt was valid. What you saw was not a hallucination of emotion. You are not broken for remembering things they want you to forget. You are not fragile for refusing to carry the false version of history they keep trying to sell you. Your clarity is a threat to their narrative, and your refusal to believe the lie is your greatest act of power. You don't need to fight to prove your truth. You only need to stop allowing it to be rewritten. You can stand still and say no more. You can decide right now that your memory matters, that your voice matters, that your experience is enough, even if they deny it. Especially if they deny it. You do not need their permission to trust yourself. You have the right to protect your mind from manipulation. You have the right to hold on to your truth without defending it. You have the right to walk away from anyone who makes you doubt the very moments that shaped your heart. There is strength in remembering clearly. There is healing in holding firm. There is freedom in refusing to let someone else define the past for you. And once you reclaim the truth, you begin to reclaim yourself. Fully, fiercely, finally. Unusual activity has been detected from your device. Try again later. 96, A5, EB4, F8, E57, D8, C3, Chi. Some people fear peace because it exposes their chaos. Stillness unsettles them. Calm makes them anxious. In the quiet, they lose their grip. Because when there's nothing to fight, nothing to fix, nothing to dominate, they're left face to face with themselves. And they can't stand what they see. So they stir conflict. They provoke. They create confusion, not by accident, but by design. Because if you're always in a state of crisis, you'll never have time to question their presence. If you're always putting out fires, you'll never realize who keeps lighting the match. This is how they survive, through emotional disturbance. They turn everything into a storm because in chaos they feel powerful. When things are calm, they become irrelevant. When you're grounded, you can see clearly. But when you're constantly unbalanced, you're easier to control, easier to manipulate, easier to keep close under the illusion of needing them. That's why the arguments never stop. That's why the tension never ends. That's why peace never lasts. Because peace is the one thing they cannot fake. You've seen it. Every time things start to feel good, they sabotage it. Every time you smile too long, they find a way to steal it. Every time you try to heal, they reopen the wound. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because your healing threatens their power. Your peace makes their drama irrelevant. And that's something they can't accept. So they push your buttons, they twist your words, they inject doubt, until you're right back where they want you. Uncertain, reactive, off balance. But you are not here to live in emotional survival mode. You are not meant to spend your life caught in someone else's storm. You are allowed to outgrow dysfunction. You are allowed to seek peace without guilt. You are allowed to stop answering chaos just because it knocks loud. The most dangerous people are not the loudest. They are the ones who normalize instability. and make you believe that love must come with pain. It doesn't. Real love feels safe. Real love feels quiet. Real love does not exhaust you. If someone is always at the center of drama, always creating division, always pulling you into conflict, you are not in a relationship. You are in a battlefield. And the longer you stay, the more you bleed. But you don't have to stay. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to explain why peace matters to you. Wanting peace is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's strength. It's the beginning of freedom. Let them chase chaos. Let them feed on noise. You don't have to follow. You don't have to engage. You can step back. You can walk away. You can choose a life where your nervous system isn't constantly in defense mode. And when you do, something powerful happens. You finally realize that peace was never too much to ask for. You were just asking the wrong person. You shouldn't have to be afraid of love, but when you're constantly walking on eggshells, it's not love you're feeling, it's fear. Fear of saying the wrong thing. Fear of setting them off. Fear of being too much, too emotional, too real. You tiptoe through conversations, rehearse your words, second-guess your truth, all to avoid another explosion. You're not being dramatic, you're surviving, and that's not how love should feel. Love should never require silence. It should never demand that you shrink yourself just to keep the peace. But when you live under emotional unpredictability, your nervous system adapts. You start to believe this is normal, that walking on edge is just part of being with someone. But it's not. It's a warning sign, a message from your body that says, this isn't safe, and the longer you ignore it, the deeper it wounds you, not just emotionally, but physically, mentally, spiritually. Constant tension rewires your brain to expect harm, even in moments of calm. You notice the patterns. They laugh when you hurt. They get distant when you need closeness. They raise their voice, then blame you for reacting. They say it's a joke, that you're too sensitive, that you're always overreacting. But the truth is, they've trained you to believe that your pain is the problem, that your emotions are too much. And so, you start to hold it in. You stay quiet. You disconnect from your needs. You convince yourself that peace means keeping them happy, even if you're breaking inside. But love doesn't live in fear. Love is not supposed to feel like pressure. Love should be a place where you can exhale, not a prison where you hold your breath. If you have to calculate every move, every word, just to feel safe, you are not loved. You are being managed, and no one deserves that. You deserve to speak freely without fear of punishment. You deserve to be seen without having to perform. You deserve to rest, to breathe, to feel safe inside your own life. The person who truly loves you will never make you feel like a burden for having emotions. They will never punish you for having needs. They will never leave you in silence, wondering what you did wrong just because you existed. You don't have to keep walking on eggshells to protect someone else's comfort. Your peace matters too. Your voice matters too. And it's not your job to stay small just to avoid conflict. It's your responsibility to honor yourself, to choose peace, not just in moments, but as a way of life. If someone can only love you when you're silent, they don't love you, they control you, and you were never born to be controlled. You were born to be free. This is your permission to stop walking on eggshells and start walking in truth. Because the moment you do, you'll realize how heavy it was to carry fear in the name of love. Love doesn't punish you for having boundaries. It doesn't get angry when you say no. It doesn't guilt trip you for protecting your peace. But when someone thrives on control, your boundaries feel like rejection to them. Your strength feels like a threat. Healing becomes their enemy, so they twist your words, make you doubt your instincts, and try to convince you that you're the problem, that you're too distant, too cold, too selfish for standing up for yourself. But you are not the problem. Your boundaries are the mirror that reflects their intentions, and the truth is they can't stand what they see. There are people who only stay close when you're compliant, when you stop questioning, when you allow the disrespect. The moment you draw a line, their mask slips. Suddenly the charm fades, the kindness disappears, and what's left is the truth. Their love was never about you. It was about control. Control disguised as care, attention disguised as love. But love never asks you to abandon yourself. It doesn't crumble when you speak up. It doesn't retaliate when you protect your soul. You're not wrong for changing. You're not wrong for waking up. You're not wrong for finally seeing what your heart has been whispering all along. That something has felt off. That love shouldn't feel like manipulation. That your worth shouldn't depend on how much you tolerate. Your ability to say no doesn't make you cold. It makes you conscious. It means you're finally done betraying yourself to make others comfortable. This isn't about becoming hardened. It's about becoming honest, about who you let into your space, about who gets access to your energy. Because not everyone deserves your vulnerability. Not everyone has earned your softness, and some people only see your kindness as weakness. But your compassion is not a weakness. It's a gift. It's sacred, and you have the right to guard it. You're allowed to love and still say enough. You're allowed to forgive and still walk away. You're allowed to wish someone well and still close the door. Boundaries are not walls to shut people out. They are bridges to bring you back to yourself. And if someone takes your boundaries as an attack, they were never for you to begin with. Because someone who loves you will celebrate your growth, not resent it. They will honor your no. They will respect your silence. They will hold space for your truth, even when it challenges them. Your peace is not negotiable. Your soul is not a bargaining chip. You don't have to keep bending just to be loved. Real love sees your edges and chooses you anyway. Real love hears no and doesn't walk away. You're not asking for too much. You're asking the wrong people. Let that sink in. Let it settle into your bones. Then stand up, speak your truth, and let your boundaries become the doorway to the life you were always meant to live. Some people only feel powerful when they make others feel powerless. They don't raise themselves up by becoming better. They do it by tearing others down. When you're around them, you start to feel small, not because you are, but because they've trained you to believe you are. They use shame like a weapon, subtle jabs, backhanded compliments, constant comparisons. They chip away at your confidence one comment at a time until you start questioning who you are. That's not love. That's psychological warfare dressed in fake concern. You find yourself dimming your light just to survive the moment. You stop celebrating your wins because you know it will trigger their insecurity. You shrink your joy to keep their ego intact, and over time, you forget what it feels like to be proud of yourself. That's the trap they want you in. Because as long as you doubt yourself, they stay in control. As long as you feel uncertain, they stay superior. But the truth is, your power was never gone. It was only buried under layers of manipulation. The moment you begin to remember your worth, everything shifts. The fog starts to clear. You hear their words for what they really are, projections, not truths. And that's when the resistance comes. They will lash out. They will accuse you of changing. They will call you ungrateful, distant, disloyal. But don't mistake their discomfort for evidence that you're doing something wrong. It's confirmation that you're finally doing something right. Tearing you down was never about who you are. It was about who they are not. And your growth reminds them of everything they refuse to face within themselves. But their healing is not your responsibility. You are not put on this earth to carry the weight of someone else's wounds. You are not required to stay small just to make someone else feel comfortable in their stagnation. You are allowed to rise. You are allowed to reclaim your voice. You are allowed to be proud of who you are becoming. And anyone who tries to make you feel guilty for that does not have your best interest at heart. Love doesn't compete. It supports. It lifts. It encourages. Real love celebrates your shine. It doesn't try to dim it. And if someone can't handle your light, they were never meant to stand beside you in the first place. This is your moment to choose truth over comfort, to choose growth over guilt, to choose yourself. Not out of selfishness, but out of self-respect. Because you cannot heal in the same environment that's been breaking you. You cannot thrive while constantly defending your right to exist. And you do not owe anyone access to you simply because they once held it. You've spent enough time being less than you are. Now it's time to stand fully in your power. Let go of the voices that tried to shrink you. Rise without apology. Because the world needs the version of you they tried to silence. If someone only values you when you're broken, they never valued you at all. Some people are drawn to your wounds, not your strength. They show up when you're doubting yourself, when you're lost, when you're most vulnerable, because that's when you're easiest to control. But the second you start healing, the second you stand up, speak clearly, and move with purpose, they start to feel uneasy. They miss the version of you that needed their approval, the version that walked on eggshells, stayed quiet, and made them feel bigger by being smaller. But you're not here to stay wounded for someone else's comfort. Healing reveals everything. Not just about you, but about those around you. It shows you who was never really there for you, only for the role you played in their life. You start to notice who encouraged your growth and who quietly resented it. You see who held space for your emotions and who used them as ammunition. Healing clears the noise. It strips away the illusions, and suddenly, you're no longer confused about who they are. You're just no longer pretending not to see it. The people who can't stand your healing are the ones who needed you broken. Because a healed you has boundaries. A healed you doesn't beg for love. A healed you no longer accepts crumbs and calls it kindness. And that kind of self-respect threatens everything they built their control on. They didn't want a partner, a friend, a family member. They wanted obedience. They wanted access to your energy without earning it. They wanted to take from you and call it love. But love doesn't drain you, it doesn't use you, it doesn't demand you bleed just to feel seen. You don't owe loyalty to manipulation. You don't owe your future to the people who fed on your past, the ones who cheered when you were low, then grew distant when you began to rise. Let them go. Let the silence reveal their truth. Because real connection doesn't die when you grow. It deepens. It doesn't fade when you heal. It strengthens. And if someone disappears when you evolve, they were never really with you. They were with the version of you that served them. This is your turning point. You're not here to carry the expectations of people who never saw your full worth. You're not here to explain your healing, your distance, your decisions. You're here to live fully, unapologetically, powerfully. Let the old stories die. Let the old ties break. If someone was meant to be in your future, they'd respect your healing, not fear it. You've done the work, you've faced the darkness, you've started climbing, and now, anyone who tries to pull you back down is showing you exactly why they can't come with you. Keep rising, keep walking, keep choosing yourself, not out of pride, but because you finally remember who you are. You were never meant to stay small. You were meant to be free. If they twist your words every time you speak, they're not misunderstanding you. They're controlling the narrative. When someone constantly distorts your truth, makes you question your own intentions, and turns your honesty into offense, they are not engaging in a conversation. They are planting doubt. They are trying to make you question your voice until it goes silent. And silence, to someone like that, is victory. Because the less you say, the more power they hold. But you were not born to be invisible. Your voice carries truth. Your thoughts matter. And if someone fears your clarity, it's because they rely on your confusion. Manipulation doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. It cloaks itself in concern, in guilt, in subtle sarcasm. It disguises control as protection. But underneath it all is the same goal: to keep you small, to keep you off balance, to keep you emotionally dependent. When someone constantly plays the victim after hurting you, when they flip every situation to make you the villain, when your pain becomes their excuse to shut down or explode, that's not love. That's not care. That's psychological warfare, and you are not required to play. It takes strength to walk away from someone who keeps pulling you back in with half apologies and empty promises. It takes clarity to recognize that not every argument needs resolution when the cycle never changes. Because real love doesn't twist your words. It listens. It doesn't erase your feelings. It makes space for them. And if someone needs to confuse you to keep you close, that's not a relationship. That's a trap. You don't have to stay loyal to dysfunction. You don't need to keep explaining your heart to someone who only listens long enough to flip the script. You're allowed to let go of the need to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding you. Their chaos is not your responsibility. Their lack of awareness is not your failure. You're not losing your mind. You're losing the lie they sold you. That love is supposed to hurt. That pain is proof of connection. That confusion is normal. It's not. Love brings peace. Love brings light. Love doesn't punish you for expressing yourself. And once you know that, you'll never unsee it. You'll stop chasing clarity from people who profit off your fog. You'll stop justifying your boundaries, your growth, your silence. Because deep down, you already know the truth. Your energy is sacred. Your peace is priceless. And anyone who wages war on your mind is revealing their true intentions. This is your cue to rise, to stop explaining, to stop shrinking, to stop waiting for someone else to validate what you already feel. Your intuition isn't wrong. Your heart isn't broken. It's awake. And now, your only job is to protect it. Let go of the ones who never saw you clearly. Reclaim your voice. Reclaim your mind. This is how you begin again, not with permission but with power.